Here is Boston, Massachusetts, Zach, Independent Line.
Yeah, how you doing? I was just wondering, are you aware of a program that was, I believe, was made in Germany and is sold to governments and is basically undetectable by security programs and that, and they can basically eavesdrop and do whatever they want, and there's no way of detecting it? Thank you.
Yes, Zach, there are several programs out there that purport to do what you describe. There is a German program, you're right, and also there are some Hungarian efforts. In fact, Hungarian researchers were among those that discovered the Stuxnet virus and the attributes associated with Stuxnet. There are significant efforts in Russia as well. As far as being undetectable, there are things that are undetectable for a while. And then there are things that are detectable immediately, but nothing, will stay. Well, one would hope at least that our security system will evolve to such an extent that our detection efforts will keep pace with that. But that is the big challenge that we have, because you always have to stay one step ahead of hacktivists and others. The German program is very good. I think the one that you're referring to is one that was developed by some of the universities there, but it is not completely impervious to detection.
Next up is Diana on our Democrats line in Livingston, New Jersey.
Hi, good morning. I've been following the cybersecurity bill of 2012 and watched the hearings, and it was like a resistance from the business community to work with government or accept these minimum standards. I'm questioning their patriotism. It's like we are getting threats from China, where the advanced persistent threats, where they lurk on their system and then steal intellectual property. And I just want to know, why won't these businesses protect our critical infrastructure, with 85% of the critical infrastructure in personal, private hands? It's very scary to think that the business community doesn't want to share information with the government, work with the government. Where's their patriotism? It seems like it goes with the trade as well, that they're putting offices in other countries using foreign workers. One of them could, give away secrets for our security. So I want the business community to start being American and start working with our government.
Thank you.
All right, Diana, that's there's some very excellent points. What the other side would say is this, and then I'll get into both arguments here. They would say that one element of this is privacy and the right to privacy, the inherent idea that you're protected in your person under the Bill of Rights of our Constitution from unreasonable searches and seizures. Some would consider the things that would have to happen in the cybersecurity realm a bit intrusive, and because of that, there are objections on privacy grounds, and the ACLU is one that is also following this, as well as some other elements and organizations that are interested in preserving the privacy aspect of it. But there is a misunderstanding out there when it comes to the type of legislation that the Lieberman bill was or is. The basic idea is that it's designed to focus on threats. You mentioned advanced persistent threats, or APTs. That is an absolute concern, because from a security standpoint, an advanced persistent threat can actually, if it's done correctly, from a hacker's point of view, can actually stay resident on a system for a very long time and can even lay dormant on that system before it is detected. So it gets to the previous caller's idea of undetectable malware and other things that are possibly out there. That can certainly happen, but in order to protect against advanced persistent threats, the type of data that you need is not necessarily personally intrusive data, but what it is data that talks about, hey, there's this threat out there, this is what it's doing to my system, this is where I think it's coming from. Those are the kinds of things that the Lieberman bill was trying to go after. So I believe that there was a fundamental misunderstanding about the relationship of privacy and the relationship of security. There are always going to be trade-offs between privacy and security, but on the one hand you have that, on the other hand you have a situation where each of these threats becomes so pernicious, so pervasive, that you have to be very, very consistent in your approach. And that is why I would say, you know, as a cybersecurity person, that it becomes very, very important to go after each of these threats and to have minimum standards to at least raise the bar for hackers so that they cannot easily change data, provide denial of service attacks, do things like that, because those are the things that are threatening our economic well-being right now. And if we're not careful, we're going to end up in a situation where there's some significant damage to the U.S. infrastructure and really the worldwide commercial infrastructure. So your point is well taken. The legislation has to be crafted in such a way that privacy is safeguarded, but it also has to provide for information sharing and provide protections to those people and those entities that are actually trying to share information with the government. The Rogers legislation from the chairman of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence actually called for the intelligence community to share information with the private sector. Other countries do this in various forms already. The fact that we don't do that is actually a negative for the U.S. economy, and that becomes a key element. If you appropriately clear businesses, even appropriately clear people like Google and Facebook and you know, the social media that we use right now, as well as businesses that provide for the critical infrastructure, we can make a huge difference in preventing hacking from actually having a serious effect on the economy. At least we can make a good effort at that. And that is what we should strive to do. We shouldn't give up, as Senator Lieberman said. We should be able to actually work in a way that raises the bar for hackers and makes it very, very difficult for hackers to do the things that they are trying to do.
Our guest was a former member of the Joint Staff of the Pentagon under Admiral Mullen and General Pace, and also a Deputy Training Director at the National Security Agency. We're talking about cybersecurity-related issues. Lakewood, New York is next. Tom, Republican line. Good morning.
Good morning. One quick question. I was only aware of this cyber Pearl Harbor 3 months ago. I was wondering if the Colonel could respond to General Keith Alexander from, I believe, the Air Force, who said several months ago that we're on a preparedness level, we're a 3 out of 10.
Yes, Tom, that's an excellent question. Actually, General Alexander is the director of the National Security Agency, and he is the commander of U.S. Cyber Command, and he's an Army 4-star. Great guy. His assessment that we're at a 3 out of 10 from a cybersecurity preparedness perspective is probably right on, because what we're looking at here is, you know, how can we respond to threats? In some cases, the threats are threats we don't even know about. In other cases, the threats are undetectable for a certain period of time. For example, the Wall Street Journal reported early this year on the case of Nortel, the Canadian-based electronics and computer hardware company. Nortel's intellectual property was stolen by supposedly Chinese hackers, and it was stolen over a period of probably about 10 years. That is a very severe example of what can happen. And Nortel right now has actually filed for bankruptcy and basically doesn't exist as the type of business that it was within the communications industry. So this is a very serious threat. The problem with this threat, it isn't a visible threat until you're trying to access something that's undergone a denial of service attack. Then you start seeing some problems, or you start seeing websites that are defaced, things of that nature. Those are the kinds of things that we're dealing with here, and because our preparedness level is so low, these attacks happen more and more frequently. And anybody that is engaged in trying to do harm to the United States or to world commerce sees this as an opportunity, because they can remain, at least for a period of time, anonymous. And that is probably why the hacktivist group Anonymous has chosen that name. They are not completely anonymous, as some of the charges levied against them by the FBI have proven, but there are some significant areas where these kinds of groups have a significant leverage and potentially can exercise significant leverage over the world economy as well as our critical infrastructure.
Arcadia, Florida is next. Rob, Independent Line.
Yes, hi, good morning. I just want to say that I keep hearing all these comments about, cyber attacks and terrorist attacks, and I just think that my government of all has done more terrorism around the planet than any other government, and I hear these kind of things that are trying to keep the populace scared and terrified. And, we have another Pentagon guy here trying to prop up the military-industrial complex, is what I feel.
Well, Rob, let me put it this way. I don't work for any of the defense contractors. I am personally very independent. I have my own business. I did serve in the military for 26 years. And I can tell you, from personal experience as well as historical experience that the United States has had, the United States does not engage in terrorism. There are certain things that are out there, in terms of, the actual threats. Like I said, these threats are not often appreciated because they are unseen threats until it is too late. What we're trying to do is we have the best interests of our country at heart. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it very clear that these are the kinds of things that we need to make our population aware of. There are certain things that can happen. I have absolutely no love lost for some of the major companies that are out there that are trying to bilk the government out of billions of dollars. I don't approve of that. But what I do approve of is protecting our country and protecting our people.